Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Pieces of Impact podcast. My name is Steve Seger, and I'm the host here today. And on this show, I am trying to document conversations with impactful people. And my guest today, Mike Schroer, I believe, is one of those people. So, Mike, thank you for joining me.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Steve. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Mike, I'm going to go through just a brief overview of your background just to give the viewer a little bit of context about why I brought you on here. Mike's originally from Cincinnati, where I'm from. He went to the same high school as me, Elder High School, and then later on went to the Ohio State University. And to back up a little bit, Mike was on a football scholarship at the University of Indianapolis and wrapped up his finance and business degree at OSU. 2023, Mike, you got your master's at XU, Xavier University in Cincinnati. And currently now you're at Boston Scientific, where you are a cardiac device representative. And I'm going to share what you do and have you elaborate later on, just so the listeners understand. You specialize in structural, heart, and electrophysiology procedures, which I'm sure you'll dig into in layman's terms. I know that you're passionate about a lot of the same stuff as me: football, you like to coach, golf, hunting, fitness. And I know that family, leadership, community involvement are all things that are really important to you. And importantly, you just recently got engaged to your fiance, Jessica. So very exciting stuff for you going on right now. And lastly, and most importantly, you are my cousin. So wanted to share that just so the viewer was aware of the relationship between us here. So
Yeah,
that
good.
wraps up your bio. Mike, did I do good there?
Yeah. Yeah, everything was great. The only thing I wasn't ever technically on scholarship at UND,
Okay.
um, but I was starting at fullback when I left, and that would have put me on scholarship. So I did leave as a starter, technically going into the 2014 season. So, but technically, no, I never received a scholarship, but everything was great. Um, Yeah, as a football guy, you know it. It's like a stolen valor thing if you say you got a scholarship to D2 program. So, but no, that was perfect, Steve. Yeah, no, that's my life. That's my background. We're just West Siders trying to get through.
Yep. That was noble of you to call that out.
Yeah.
Um, let's just start things off. Can you just walk me through your background and unpack it a little bit more, your upbringing? I think it's going to lead us well into the meat of the discussion today, and it's going to give the listener here an opportunity just to get to know you a little better too.
Yeah. So yeah, like you said, I'm from Cincinnati. We didn't grow up that far from each other. But yeah, I'm one of three. I'm the middle child, and um, so my mom and dad, Doug and Sandy. I got Emily is my older sister. Joe is my younger brother, and yeah, we grew up. I mean, we originally started in Wilder, Kentucky. I was there until I was 5, and then in 2001, spent in 2001 we were actually in an apartment as we were building the house that we eventually would move in, and then in January of '02 we moved into that house on the west side, the Quail Run Farm house, which we just sold. My parents sold like 2 or 3 weeks ago, which I'm sure we all heard about in
Mhm.
the family. Yeah, so then moved in there, and yeah, I was about 5, and my parents had that house until this year, 2025. Yeah, all Catholic school, which is pretty typical where we're from. So Our Lady of Visitation, then Elder High School. Football was always a big thing where we're from, and my dad played football at Elder, and then so my brother and I played football, and we went through Vizzy, went through Elder, and yeah. So what was growing up was just big family. I had you guys. We'd see each other all the time. Christmas Eve, I had the Schroer side on Christmas Day, and I think the furthest relative was like 10 minutes away from us. So was really a nice thing. I'll always cherish that, but I know as time changes, things change, and it's interesting. My fiance didn't grow up that way. She was her family was in St. Louis, Cleveland, um, so they travel all the time, and we never traveled, so it is an adjustment. But now we're like that with Joe's in South Carolina, Emily and I are in Columbus, and mom and dad just moved up to Columbus. So, but yeah, no, that's pretty much our background. We mom and dad believe in hard work. They both work their tails off. My mom in med device sales, my dad in I say IT infrastructure sales, but I'm sure there's more to it. Um, and actually, I don't know if you heard this, Steve, but no, I know mom's retiring this April. Dad just announced he's retiring this March.
I did
Yep.
not know that.
Yeah, that's new. So he just told me yesterday. But yeah, he's going to pack it up and just relax. So
All right.
yeah,
Cheers
but
to Uncle Doug and Aunt Sandy. Big stuff
yeah,
over at the Shore House.
so good. Yeah, good stuff up here. So it's been good. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, I'm sure there's more to my background than that, but we can
Yeah.
always elaborate more.
Well, let's start off by digging in on your time at the University of Indianapolis. I want to hear more about that experience, why you chose to go on to start playing football there, and just tell me about that a little more.
Yeah. So when I was at Elder, I wanted to play college football, and my dad wanted me to play. I wanted to play, and it was pretty apparent I wasn't going to get any taller. So there's only so many options, and
How tall are you? Just for the listener.
officially probably like 5'9 3/4" because I think the last time I was actually measured was this is a little foreshadowing. We'll get into it. Was at an Ohio State football tryout,
Okay.
and I was
5'10".
measured at 5'9 3/4". So a little cliffhanger there, or a little tidbit of info. But
Yep.
so I went on after Elder and was trying to get a scholarship. And as an offensive lineman, 5'10" doesn't get you a scholarship. So no matter how good you are, and so I walked on at the University of Indianapolis after pretty much all the D2 schools were like, we like you, but we'll take you as a preferred walk on. So I chose UIndy, and it was great. I enjoyed it. The coaches were great. The team was great. Um, I went as hard as I could. I was scout team player of the year, and for reference too, I at January it was 270 pounds, and then I reported in August at 225, and dropped that weight because I was one being heavy is hard on your body, and two, I didn't like the way I looked, and once I wasn't getting a scholarship from anyone, I was just like, I'm gonna lose weight. I'm not gonna do this for free. So I reported um at 225, and I was a scout team center. So I was still 225 scout team center playing D2 college football. And so I did a good job. That's part why I won the scout team player of the year, because I was the small guy now.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was a good first year, had fun. I was redshirted. It came into the second year in the off season, was doing time as a fullback. Had a good spring ball session, and that summer I went home and we did our training by ourselves at home. So I went home to Cincinnati and was starting to contemplate why I was playing. And you always hear, and I'm totally fine with it. People, I could play football anywhere. The like it, and that's great. But I kind of found out that I wasn't that way. Elder football meant the world to me, and becoming a UND Greyhound didn't really mean the world to me. Mm, I probably would have continued playing, but honestly, like my younger brother Joe made the team as a sophomore. So my freshman year of college, I missed like half his games.
Mhm.
And I
When
wanted
he
to
was
watch
playing
him.
at Elder,
Yeah,
right?
he's Elder, and So just going into that first summer training, heading into my redshirt freshman year, academic sophomore year, and Joe's heading to his junior year. Um, they told me like I'm starting, uh, I'm traveling with the team, and I said for the home games, can I drive to Cincinnati and watch Joe play and come back Friday night? And they said no, you can't. Like you got to be with the team. And I get it. I'm not against it, but then it became a choice. It's like, well, I'm a redshirt freshman. I got 4 more years of this, so I won't see Joe play, I mean, until his sophomore year of college. And but more so than that, I wouldn't see him play at Elder. And so it just I wasn't that excited to be a UND Greyhound on top of that. And um so for a while I just kind of made the decision. It wasn't important to me enough, and when I went back to report to camp, I talked to the coaches and just said I'm done. And and that was it. So I was at UND for a semester, not playing football, um, and it was very hard. You go 13 years in a row of playing football, and then you decide not to. Um, but yeah, that was so I really didn't have a plan. Um, that fall, Emily was at Ohio State and she invited me to the Ohio State Cincinnati game. And that was 2014. So this was the national championship year. And Ezekiel Elliott, JT Barrett, you name it, Devin Smith, all the defensive guys on that team. I think Joey Bosa was on that team.
Hmm.
We're just stacked. And that was my first Ohio State game I ever saw in the horseshoe. And it kind of hit me that I wanted to go for it. And because I mean, if I was going to miss Elder football, I'd rather it be for Ohio State football. And yeah, I mean, honestly, and
Yeah.
I didn't know. I was realistic about if I could make it or not, but I also hated the feeling of not knowing, and that really ate at me when I was like not and the what if. I was thinking about that if I was at UND, like what if I tried hard enough, I did make the team and I got to like run out on the field. And so that was when I decided to transfer to Ohio State. I actually stopped drinking for like 4 months after that to train for it. And then yeah, I transferred. My first day on campus was when Ohio State beat Oregon in the national championship. Um and I think the tryout was a couple weeks later. So that was the start of that. And and for reference, never made the team, but I did try out 3 times. Um, did the best I could, but and honestly, I don't regret it. It was fun. I'm glad I graduated at Ohio State, and there was only one place I wanted to play football in college, and so I went after it and didn't get it, but I'm really happy I tried. So that's
Yeah.
my football career in a nutshell.
Well, I mean, at least you have the peace of mind knowing that you gave it every fiber of you to try to reach that goal, though.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes I always beat myself up, like, there was the second tryout, I didn't make it, and I was like, "Oh, I coulda tried harder," and really that wasn't it. I think I was just young and thinking like, "Oh, well, it didn't hurt enough, so I think I coulda tried harder." But yeah, so, yeah, totally worth it though. I just had to
Yeah.
find
If you could, I guess, wrap up your football career, your experience throughout all of that into a bow, what was like the main takeaway and piece of learning that you think you could share here?
um, it's funny, my college experience and my high school experience were kind of taught me two different things. I think most of my lessons were at Elder, um, and I received a lot of lessons from what I did in college. I think one like you got to find out what I'll say this all the time, what you're passionate for. If other people are saying I could play football anywhere, and your first reaction is, "Oh, I don't feel that way. What's wrong with me?" Don't think that way. It's just some people can play football anywhere. Some people can play football. They can, I mean, they'll go to Canada and play football. Like that's how much they love football. But like for me, I had to do. I guess I got more comfortable in my own skin and being okay with who I am. And a lot of times I thought there was something wrong, but it was just that's who I was. But football is an awesome teacher. And I think my high school experience was awesome, and we went after everything in football. We went after it as hard as we could, and then when I was alone going after the Ohio State tryouts, I did everything I could to get it. So yeah, it's do what you're passionate about, and if you're going after it, make sure you pour it on.
Well, that probably ties in nicely to the segue to how you actually picked your career that you're in now. I know that you started in something and then switched to a different industry. I'm sure that a lot of those lessons helped you as you did that. Can you walk the listener here through that experience to post grad now?
Yep. Yeah. So I was at Great American Insurance for 2.5 years. Um, it was maybe about a year into the job that I realized this wasn't what I wanted to do. Um, and I was a finance major at Ohio State because I'm good with numbers. I do enjoy finance, but it just wasn't, you know, one thing I struggled with sitting in a cubicle, which I didn't know. And, um, it's something you don't know until you get there where it's like, yeah, finance looks really good. Like it's fun. But then I didn't realize how much I had to move in my life. And that's honestly in school. I kind of at elder and in grade school, I struggled because, and that struggle's a poor word. I was a some C student, but I got B's at elder. And then at Vizzy, it was probably worse than that. I hated sitting still.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are some teachers at Vizzy that probably still don't like me and would be shocked that I'm a cardiac device rep. So you know, when so I did finance, I get out, and it's just I was really struggling trying to figure out what to do. So after a year, I started looking for new jobs. I started my master's program at XU and was just trying to do anything to get out. Um, and I guess one eventually good takeaway from all this is like how do you find out what you're going to do? Um, it's such a daunting task. One, when you're leaving college, if you don't know what you're going to do, just tell yourself that you're going to be okay because that's the truth. Um, you can't figure out the rest of your life once you graduate college. That you're not supposed to have it figured out. Uh, please know that you're not weird. There's nothing wrong with you. Um,
Good piece of
so
advice.
yeah, no, and
Yeah.
so what I did, I think it's the beautiful thing about people is we have enough people who are different that if they go after what they're passionate about, they can bring value to society. And for me, I had to zoom out and be like, what do I want to do? And I'll try to narrow it down from there. And one, I need to talk to people because I'm in a cubicle and I don't talk to anyone all day, and I hate this. And two, it needs to be important to me, and that's relative. Uh, but there's multiple industries that can be important. And when I was at Great American, I never spoke to a military recruiter, but in my mind, when I couldn't get a job, I was like, I could leave and join the military. I'm like, that's important. Like that's important work. Um, I never got close to doing that, but it leads into what the next job and opportunity came up that and why I took it. But so I think a year and a half after that, so we're at about the 2.5 year mark, and I think I went to like I'm gonna say around 30 different interviews and entry level sales positions, both in like medical device and not in medical device. But yeah, they everyone said I didn't have sales experience, which they were all entry level sales positions. So I was struggling to break into entry level sales, which I don't know what the definition of entry level is anymore. But finally, a guy. name was John. He ran the Medtronic spine team in Cincinnati, and I met his team a year before. He had a spot opened up, and he gave me a job as a navigation specialist for our spine team. And that was my in. And the nice thing, he said I didn't have to interview because I already met the team. So like it literally was just he sent paperwork over, I signed it, put in my notice for Great American, and I became a spine rep. I got so that was but it was something in my head where I'm like, I'm going from a cubicle to the OR. And now it was a heavy adjustment. But my job's to talk to doctors, tell them how to use our instruments, our screws and rods and inner bodies and implant technique. And then also I'm doing important work. So it satisfied the two where I get to talk to people and it's important to
Hmm.
me. Um, so
Let me ask you a question there.
yeah.
When you were looking for a job, I think this would be valuable to the listeners here. Was there any mistakes or pieces of advice that you could share with that experience? As a lot of people are probably have gone through similar stuff and struggled with it too.
Yeah. I guess I'll think about mistakes. I don't know if I necessarily made mistakes. I'm sure I did stuff wrong. Um, I mean, but the one thing I did right was I went and tried to interview with as many people as I could because I mean, that's how desperate I was to get a new job. I was really driven. Um, but there are some. I think it's hard to make mistakes in interviews. And like at least for me, like I had nothing to lose. I was authentic. I said I worked hard. I knew no part of me, like I interviewed for sales rep positions in med device, and no part of me was trying to like trick the person into thinking I had medical device experience. Like I was very upfront. The worst they can say is no. Um, I think being hard on yourself and being patient, that's the hard thing. And, you know, one, coming out of college, it's hard to enter the job market. And then two, when you're in the workforce, you're going to hit times where it's just hard to find a job. And it's gonna take a year or 2, and for me, it was a year and a half. Some people, it takes a couple years, and they take a break in the middle of it, and then they search again. It's very easy to get disheartened. It's, I did lose a lot of confidence in myself by the time I got that job, and I remember when I became the spine rep, um I said to myself, I was scared because I didn't know if I could do it or not. But I was just like, I don't have anywhere else to go. And the one thing I kept saying was like, I wish you gave me the job a year ago because I had more confidence then. You go through a year of just everyone telling you no, 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 and then you're still working a job you don't like, and then it's just like everything just feels bad. So the one thing I did well is no matter how bad I felt, I tried to continue to do a good job. I was still going to XU to get my master's, and I just kept saying, like, have faith, keep believing, just keep going. So I guess a big lesson, which goes to anything in life that I've learned is it doesn't matter how you feel. If you feel bad, you can address it, but don't stop. And it is hard. It's really you do wanna stop and take a break or sometimes even quit. Um, but it's you're not gonna you can't just try when you feel good. So, and I kinda said it paid dividends. All the effort and work I put in when I felt bad about everything, about myself, it helped me now. And so I'm in a better position now, but I can thank Mike 5 or 6 years ago who was, he was worse off than I am now, but he did that for me. So that's a big lesson. I mean, but again, I had nothing to lose going into these interviews, so I tried as much as I could. Um, I was okay with taking a break, like taking a week or 2 of not applying to jobs just to give myself a mental break.
Yeah.
Um, but you know what? I don't know. I try not to beat myself up because I'm going through it the first time. So I tried my best. I'm sure I made mistakes. Um, I guess my advice would be don't get down on yourself so much when it takes time. Um, the last thing I'll say, what got me through Great American, and it was a great opportunity, and there was actually Uncle Keith was such a big help, who he also worked there.
Mhm.
Um, I talked about like I'm going through a year and a half of trying to find a new job, and I'm like, there's guys like Nelson Mandela was in prison for 27 years. I'm like, if he could do that, I got this. Like I'm good. And
Mhm.
so yeah, I mean I guess that's a good perspective to take is that it just sometimes it's just going to suck and it's going to take time. And you'll get through it. Just have faith.
Yeah, some of the problems that we have are micro compared to what other people have been through, so that's a good point, yeah.
Yeah. And
Now
one last point I'll make, and what really helped me get through, um, again, in college, don't feel like you have everything figured out or you need to. If you're in a career, it's okay to switch. When I was at Great American, like I had a heart to heart with Uncle Keith Seeger. So he is, I mean, he was like my boss's boss or something, and he was awesome. Everyone loved him. And I sat down in his office and I was like, I don't know what I want to do for the rest of my life. And he was like, neither do I. I was like, what do you mean? Like you're married with 2 kids. Like, what do you mean? He's like, no one does. Like it's okay. And that was the first time where I'm like, okay, I don't need to be locked into a choice I made when I was 20 years old, you know. And it really helped me. It was so that was a good understanding talk that I had with him, that I really appreciate.
mhm. Well, you moved over to Medtronic, and you're on the spine team. You got no experience. All you got is your work ethic and your grit. Talk to me about the first couple of months there.
Um, what's the line from Armageddon? Scariest environment imaginable. They're talking about the asteroid they got to land on. He's like scariest
Yeah.
environment imaginable. That's all you had to say. Um, that's what it felt like. The
Mhm.
training was not as in depth as I thought it would be, and I was put in situations I think were maybe not ideal. And so that was some of the scariest things I ever had to do. You know, uh, Neurosurgery is a little different. The doctors can be particular. The doctors are, some of them the best ones are the nicest people on earth. That was if you have, if you're ever trying to get neurosurgery, the best, if you're trying to have a good gauge, if they're very polite and kind and humble, that's probably the one of the top surgeons. But you do run into some that will scream at you, some that will kick you out, some that like it's really tough. And then these are again like learning about spinal anatomy, and then it's neuro and orthopedic surgery, and you're dealing with neurosurgeons and orthopedic surgeons who do spine. There's a crossover. The neurosurgeons also do brain surgery, and then the orthosurgery surgeons also do other parts, other structures. Um, but they both do spinal procedures, and learning that whole, it just, you can't learn everything. It's like learning Mandarin, and um the different techniques, and like it's not just implanting screws and rods and inner bodies. It's, well, once you implant screws and rods in inner bodies and the patient stands up, and what's the weight bearing load, like how much, you know uh, like how's it going to settle, how do you avoid having to do a revision. um you don't want any complications. You have patients who would get infections, you got to bring them back, and all this is costly stuff. um what I leaned on was I was always honest, I was hardworking. Um, I knew I was going to make a lot of mistakes, and so when I did, I just made sure that it wasn't a safety mistake. Which, thank goodness, I've rarely made safety mistakes in my career. Um,
What's a safety mistake? Like hurt
Something that
someone?
could hurt a patient. Yeah,
Mhm.
like,
Okay.
you forget something and it could hurt someone, or you advise something that's wrong. Um, so at minimum, be safe is kind of the motto as a device rep. Um, but I always if I didn't know the answer, I always tried to figure it out as soon as I could, and I just tried to get good at I tried to get really good at one thing and then work from there. So I helped with the navigation technology. So you gotta scan the patient, um, you know, and you essentially it's like GPS for neurosurgery. So you scan the patient with like a CT scanner, and then you're mapping it out, and the doc can see their instrument on the screen, and it's literally like playing Xbox. And but they're there holding it, but they're looking at the screen and they're seeing like where they are in the spine.
Mhm.
Um, so really
Where
cool
are
stuff.
you involved in that? I mean, during a procedure, walk the listener here through what exactly you're doing in the room with the doctor.
Yeah. So originally I was in charge of doing the scan and making sure we wrap the scanner around the patient appropriately, getting the images, getting making sure we take enough images to we can do a full map.
Mhm.
Um, making sure all the reference frames are in place, making sure the instruments that are needed for the procedure are there, and that's more of a like I did that later on in my time there. But once we're navigating, I'm behind the screen, ki kind of like, I'm behind the screen just guiding the imaging. So like the doc is scrubbed in and he's putting a screw in, and if I could see he's focusing on like an axial image of the spine, and like let's say this is the vertebral body and these are the pedicles, like I may zoom in on it so that he can see it, like he can see where he's going, or
Mhm.
just I'm reading him, he puts a different size screw on, I'm going to adjust the screw size on the navigation screen and make sure he can see that. So and when we finish up we always do a post image. And so we take the image and then I scroll through it with the doctor and we make sure that we like everything. Um, so that's pretty much my job. And then, you have instrument trays that you have to bring in and have those 2 days in advance. So sterile processing can get those cleaned and taken care of. And so, yeah, a
Mhm.
lot of running trays.
So you're
I
kind of
was,
like a spotter of sorts for the doctor with the Medtronic uh, materials that are being used in the actual procedure.
yeah, my job is to ensure that any Medtronic device that is used in the procedure, I help with and it's used appropriately. Um, so med device reps, we have to do everything on label, meaning it's illegal for me to suggest something that is off label or that instrument was FDA approved for XYZ. I can't go and say, hey, go do A, like go do A and B with it. If this device was meant for the lumbar, I can't be like, "Oh, put it in the cervical. It's fine." Like that's illegal for me to do. So doctors can do that because doctors can do what they feel is best for the patient. It's not illegal for them. There sometimes could be a liability issue when they go off label, but they can do whatever they want. We can only follow our guidance, or that we can only follow what's FDA approved. But we could be there and help out, even if they decide to do what's off label. And we've done off label procedures before. It's just I never advocate for them. I'm not allowed to, but there are circumstances where something off label is what that patient needs. And it's just I have to keep my mouth shut and just be like, I'm here if you need me.
Okay.
So that's pretty much it.
Mhm. So you're getting better at your job. You're kind of in the trenches, surviving and just moving on each day. I mean, was there a turning point for you where you finally were like, I feel like I'm good at my job and I know what I'm doing?
Yeah. I as a navigation specialist, I was at the end of my year there, I was becoming a certified spine rep, and that's a little more complex. I could do some smaller spine procedures on my own, but I could do all navigation procedures.
Hmm.
Um, there was a time when I realized what was important was time and efficiency, and so you're bringing in a 700 pound scanner on wheels, and you're wrapping it around the patient. you got to get in and out. And the patient's back is split open. So the infection risk goes up the more time you're there. And I just got really good at like, I was good at imaging. I was good at doing my navigation. And it's not that complex of a job. Relative to the other things I did in my career, it's not that complex. But I got good at like the rad techs are the only ones who are allowed to do the scan, but I would go and get them and I would meet them and I would tell them like, hey, I'm going to need you in 10 minutes. And then, hey, I need you in 5 minutes. And then I'll go down and grab them and be like, I need you now. And the doctors appreciate that. Like the moment they step back and they're like, all right, we're ready for the scan. Me and the rad tech, the radiology technician, are at the door coming in with the scanner. And
Hmm.
we were in and out. We made these procedures quick. Um, Doctors can just use x-ray instead of navigation, so I was really competing against a doctor saying, oh, this takes too much time, I'm going to use x-ray, it's only 4 screws, where they're like, well, Mike's here, we could do it quick and he'll get it in and out and we'll be done. I'd rather use navigation and make sure we're done, and that was what I did. So I got really good at that. And all the doctors were trusting me and knew that I was honest, because there was kind of competitive stuff that we may or may not need to dip into. But like I was always honest and did what's best for the patient, and I was fast. And like um, so they all trusted me after a while. But I had to earn that trust. They didn't trust me at first. So yeah, that was interesting too. So
Hmm. And at what point did you kind of get to that point? I mean, how long into the role did it take for you to start to become confident? Like you show up every day, you're like, I'm good at what I do.
um I got the job in September. I think January or February, I started to feel confident.
Hmm.
Um, Part of it, I also came in what the navigation technology Medtronic uses. They obviously wanted the surgeon to use Medtronic screws and rods, but you can attach the navigation to any company. So um, when we were doing these cases, a lot of the docs used a company called Nuvasive or Stryker or Zimmer Biomet. Um, or yeah, it's Smith and Nephew's, not spinal, but Depew Synthes, which is a Johnson Johnson. So they, you know, like I came in, we put Medtronic scanners, trackers on other companies' devices because the doctor liked that device better. And the Medtronic people were trying to change the doctor's behaviors. The doctors knew that and they hated it. And so I came in hated, even though they didn't know who I was. And like I had one doc tell me, he's like, you guys won't win the war, like talking about Medtronic. And I was like, I'm not here to win a war. I'm just trying to get my job. I was doing insurance like 10 minutes ago. Like, and, you know, so I really gained that confidence. Honestly, I think there were 1 or 2 docs that didn't. There was one doc that didn't like me, but overall, I had like 15 or 20 that appreciated me, and that was when my confidence grew. Where they knew some of the Medtronic reps, were always trying to sell to them, and so was
Hmm.
I. But like, I was just trying to sell to them that I was more valuable. But I always did the right thing. I didn't want to push something that I felt wasn't the best thing. So by the time I was leaving, I had a lot of docs that appreciated me. Even docs that at the beginning yelled at me at the end when I was on my way out were shaking my hand and telling me congrats. So yeah, month 7, I did the job for like 11 months and then I left to become a pacer rep.
Hmm. So, what's the next step in your career? You're at Medtronic, you're on the spine team, you're good at what you're doing. At some point in the story, you're moving over to Boston Scientific, one of your competitors. Are we there yet,
Yeah.
or is there an area in between that you want to talk about?
There's an area in between. And sorry if this is taking a while, but yeah. So quickly put, the Medtronic pacemaker team in Columbus, Ohio offers me a job, and I wasn't looking for a job. They reached out to me because they needed someone.
Hmm.
Uh, this more aligned with what I wanted in my life. One of the first things the guy who hired me told me was, you know, I said, I'm like, you guys need to train me. I'm not going to tolerate like half training, or you guys say you're going to train me and not train me. And he's like, no, we're going to push you. I was like, okay, okay. That made me a little nervous. It's like, Mike, if you mess up in this job, someone could die.
Mhm.
And that scared me, but it felt like that was okay. This is what I was meant to do. You know, in spine, you really don't have as much of an impact on the outcome. The surgeon, if they're good or bad, that's what's going to happen. In cardiac, you have more of an impact. And so, yeah, then I became a pacer rep. And it was hard, but it was 9 months of training. I prepared as hard as I could. I did that for 4 years. And that was kind of, you know, I don't want to say the highlight of my career. At that moment, it was the highlight. I was a really good pacer rep. I worked really hard. I felt like I separated myself as a young guy because I had a lot of teammates that were doing it for 20 years, and so you could never know more than them. But there wasn't a procedure I couldn't walk into that I couldn't do. But granted, like a lot of my mentors have been they're in their 50s and 60s, and they've been doing pacers since I was born. Um, so that was a really cool thing, and some of the best work I ever like some of the most fun work I ever did in my life. But it was really challenging. And so 4 years into it, about a year ago, that's when I got offered to do my role with Boston Scientific, and I became a Watchman rep who also does Farapulse ablations. And those two devices are taking off right now, so it's kind of it's a movement. Like it's and I just said I wanted to be a part of this movement because it's really impactful. And it's a great company, and I work with a really good team. So that was kind of the transition. I know we talked a lot about spine stuff, but yeah, that it was really tough leaving the pacemaker team. The patient interaction was really fun, which I didn't get as a spine rep. You know, I got to talk to patients. I got to see them afterwards. I'm checking their pacemaker and defibrillator. I was shocking people's hearts. I was at Children's Hospital work, you know, and I became the primary Children's Hospital rep, which is what I wanted. I love working with kids, and um, some of the most rewarding work I've ever done. But it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And it just got to a point, you know, one, Jess and I were in a relationship, and I that took me 9 months to find a job to get out of. But I knew I want to help people still, but I need something more appropriate to the kind of life that I want to have because I want to be a husband and a father. So it was a sacrifice, but I gave it up eventually. And you know, this gig as a Boston rep, Watchman and Farapulse, these are scheduled procedures. There's no more call. Um, you know, and these are two of the best devices in all of medical device in the industry for any procedure. So I'm really fortunate I got the best of both worlds. But that was so I've been a cardiac rep now for 5 years. I was a spine rep for one. So I'm in
Mhm.
year 6 or 7 total.
I remember when you were still at Medtronic, you were working extremely hard. And I remember talking to you on the phone. This was when I was living down in Charlotte still. And I mean, you set an incredible example for me, um, just pushing through things that just seem insurmountable. Talk to me about what you learned and took away from that experience when it felt like, to me, at least from the outside looking in, you were getting worked pretty hard. I mean, can you just
Yeah.
elaborate a little bit? I think that's important.
Yeah. I I think everyone has to go through a grind phase in their life. When you look and see older people and you're like, they're not grinding as much. It's like, well, one, they're smarter and they know how to be, they're trying to be valuable over working hard. And there's a difference. You always have to work hard, but in the end, you just need to be valuable and get the job done. But when I was at Medtronic, um, that was the hard thing was like I was very valuable, but no matter what, even the veterans that have done it for decades, like they get grinded down. And honestly, I went harder than most, but at the level that I was going at was not sustainable and was taking a toll on me. Um, and so I would see veterans who had done it for 20 years, and it's like, you know, there's an add-on check at 5 or 6 PM, and they'll be like, Mike's got it. And I'm like, why would you not help me? But it's what I realize that I do appreciate is like they have kids at home and they know it's a marathon and not a sprint. I always
Hmm.
advocate. I have really good teammates. But I realized it was less of people not caring about you. And one, don't take everything personally. It was less of that and more of that's how they figured out how to do this job for a long time, where their family's number one and then it's their job. And I really kind of came to respect that. So and a lot of these a lot of my teammates, some are going for promotions, some it's not the right time in their life. So it's, you know, you can't burn out on everything. Point being, what you can learn about tough times. Yeah, I was getting up. Yeah, I was getting up early every day. I think 2022, my resolution was to get up at 4:30 every day and work out, and I did that, and that's what got the habit of getting up early. I don't do that as often anymore, but I still get up at 4:30 mostly every day. But now I've learned to go easy on myself sometimes. As long as I get the job done and exercise, I'm good. But at the time, like the day started at 7 and I didn't know when I would ever get home. So like I would be like, "Oh, I'll work out at 5." And then you get an add-on case and like I've been pulling into my apartment and had to turn around to go to the hospital. Like your brain is like, I'm going to sit on the couch and watch Netflix. And then they're like, "You're going to Children's Hospital. There's a defibrillator case that we got to do." And it's like, okay, gosh. So
Yeah.
I worked out in the morning. Um, I, like a psycho, was listening to a bunch of Navy SEAL videos and just trying to grind through it. And it was extremely valuable. I'll always say that you have to be tough in life, and these are good lessons. But you know, you I think you have to learn to have discipline and take care of your body and take care of your mind. Um, you can't grind forever, but when you need to, you got to get it done. And so it was a good lesson. I didn't have an off switch back then. I didn't have the ability to shut it off and enjoy life. So that's, I remember there's a photo of me at Emily's wedding in 2021, and it was me at the bar. Someone took a photo of me. It looks great. It's me at the bar with a beer, and I'm just looking at the camera with a calm face, and everyone's like, "That looks good, Mike." And I was like, I was about to fall asleep at the bar. Like I had been so tired, and I remember thinking, I'm like, I'm at my sister's wedding, and I can't even function. And
Yeah.
um, so they're great lessons. I don't regret anything, but I learned like don't ever sacrifice your peace of mind or unless you see a clear objective that you're going for. And for me, it was patient care. And I wanted to be a sales rep, but after a while, I realized Medtronic wasn't as good of an environment to get to where I was going. Um, I wasn't a fan of all leadership. My boss was a really good person. I loved her, but um, it just it became a place where I felt like I couldn't grow. And then I was like, what am I doing all of this for? And um, so then as opposed to being like sacrifice for the patient, I came to the realization that like I don't want to be a martyr for a corporation. And plus Medtronic was starting to take away money from our team and stuff. So it's like on top of that, we got paid less than most cardiac reps did, which never made sense. But it's
Hmm.
just pacemakers and defibrillators are a maturing market. They've been out since the 90s. So pacemakers have been out since the 60s. So the devices aren't that expensive anymore. And if you're not charging a lot for your product, there's not much you can pay the reps. And um, so now it's like, right, I enter a job where I don't have call. Sometimes I get home at 2 p.m. and it's really nice, but it's we make more money now. And it's because the little device that we implant cost a lot more, So but Medtronic also it was just it was a great experience. I appreciate everyone at Medtronic, but it was a tougher environment to grow, and I felt like I sacrificed a lot, and, I just after that, I had to move on. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Well, you're at Boston Scientific now. It sounds like things are going very well. You're in Columbus. You just got engaged to Jessica.
Yeah.
Uh, Moving away from the career focused season of your life and into what you are now telling me you want to focus on starting your family. Help me understand, and we talk about this offline a lot. Help me understand why that's so important to you, the family side of things, and then we'll dig into on meeting Jessica and kind of learning where your head was at with that. And let's start there though. Talk to me about family.
Yeah, so family. First well, I guess before I say, like, it goes back to what you're passionate about, like, kind of synonymous with, like, what your calling is.
Hmm.
And only I feel like only you can decide what your calling is. Like, what were you meant to do? And it's really hard to find, so be patient with yourself. But one thing I knew is, like, I wanted to be a husband and a father, and part of that was just how I felt. I did feel like it was supposed to be a part of my life at some point. But also, like, I saw my parents, and I wanted a life like that. Or I saw, both sides, both my grandparents, and, and one in particular, like, I really admired my grandpa Schroer, Elmer, and he was, like, tough, but just, like, a stoic man. He was a World War II vet, kinda like great grandpa Iman, and, they both were really similar, but just like, Grandpa Schroer just embodied strength, and but he was humble. I mean, it was he was a good father and did a lot of good. He owned a business and was very wealthy. He's would never talk about it or wear it on his sleeve, so you could never tell. There were things that when he died in 2002, people coming to, like, grandma and my dad and his brother saying, like, "Hey, he when this girl's dad died, he paid for their high school education at Mercy. And when this janitor died, he paid for the funeral." And stuff that, like, the rest of his family was like, "We didn't even hear about." Um, that was grandpa in a nutshell. And so, like, so on the back porch growing up in my life, when my dad would give me lessons, I think he cited Elmer Schroer about, like, 50,000 times in our life. And,
Yeah.
and don't get me wrong, like, I love my dad's approach to it because grandpa, he was the same man on Sunday morning as he was Saturday night. And if you
Hmm.
know my dad's not necessarily like, my dad enjoys himself. My dad is full of energy. Like, he went away to Chicago, he came back. So, like, relative to my grandpa, who's, like, devout Catholic, raising 6 boys and has a wife, my dad was like, "Let's go. Let's take the adventure." So it was cool that my dad would reference such a stoic man who had a lot of strength, but he would always blend his energy, and my dad had a lot of strength too. So, all of this was just, like, figures that I wanna be when I grow up. And, it not trying to be like a general of a father, but there's, like, people that, like, embody, like, military mindset kind of, and, but more so than that, how to be strong and gentle, how to be good, but then also, lay down the hammer when you need to, like, all that balance, how to be tough and then also be caring at the same time, like, all that. So that's I always felt that that was something I was supposed to do. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's where this balance came in where, yeah, I'm working a lot at work, but, at some point I need to have time. You can't physically do everything. I need to have time to raise a family. And it's just conscious choices. I think Jocko Willink said it. Everything has trade-offs. Every choice you make has trade-offs. So there's nothing necessarily wrong with the choice you make, but just know, like, if I make a choice to try to have a family, it may delay the time I become a sales rep, the time I become a business leader. It may delay it by 5, maybe 10 years. And that's okay. You know, it all depends on when opportunities come up and when they do come up, if it's right for me and my family. So, anywho, that's where all that came from.
Hmm. And how'd you know that Jessica was your person?
So it took a lot of, it was a lot of soul searching. Everyone, I did get a lot of guidance from people, but also at the end of the day, it's your call and you need to make the decision yourself. Um, I've had people who talk about love at first sight. I've had people who they're like, I knew on date number three. And it's funny, like in those moments, I overthink a lot of things and I'm like, I don't know if I was necessarily like that. I don't know if I was like the or like, but the best advice I got was my mom who said everyone loves differently. And your story won't look like my story. Like she's like, it's not going to look like mom and dad. And I would say our relationship doesn't look anything like anyone else's. It's unique. So when I finally like give myself space to look back at it, I remember like the first date when I was with her, I felt something. I was impressed by her work ethic. I was impressed by how kind she was. She was very driven. And I just felt this. I told her later, I have to like try to explain it, but like I wanted to give her a good life. And that was like a thought I had on date number one. And so it's funny where people are like, "Oh, was it love at first sight?" And I was like, "Well, no, it wasn't." But then I'm looking back, I'm like, "Well, maybe that was it. Like that was it from the beginning where no matter what, like in our hard times and our good times, I'm like, I just want her to have a good life." Like it became the same way I look at my siblings and I want them to have a good life. And, obviously, but this is deeper. And, this is something where like I don't directly impact my siblings anymore. They both are married and their spouses do that. But like this is someone where like I could marry this person and I can help him. And then what I learned though was from her point of view, she loves me more than anything. Um, I kinda joke, it's kind of she loves me like Jesus does. Do you ever hear that song? Who is that? Eric Church? I just feel like I do dumb stuff all the time, and she's just like, "It's okay." And I've told her everything I've done wrong in my life, and we were heading to engagement, and I was like, "Before we get into this, I need to tell you everything I've done wrong," and I did. She's like, "That's okay, I still love you." And I'm like, "Cool." Yeah, and,
Yeah.
you know, she shows grace a lot of times when I struggle to, and it's such a good lesson on being patient and, um, you know, like when someone does something and they're not perfect, um, she shows me a lot of grace. So yeah, I mean, but here's the funny thing: even in our relationship, it's like the way we love each other is not identical. So it just she loves me more than anything, and I love her more than anything. But like my thought was like, I don't know if it's like work and goal oriented, where I'm like, I want to give her a good life, or like, I don't know what it is, but it was really we had a moment in May of 24 when I mean we were working on her patio and I was scrubbing it. That we kind of sit down after working on this, and I just had the thought where I'm like, I want to marry this girl. Then we went a year and a half later, and the summer leading up to, like, 2025, I did a lot of praying and was able to get some guidance from that, and I felt that this is what I was meant to do. I want her, and she wants me, and, um, we don't wanna be without each other, even no matter how we feel, and again, going back to, like, just because you don't feel good doesn't mean cannot put in the work, you gotta put in the work. And honestly, what we realized is like the problems that we had are a lot normal in and are a part of marriage
Hmm.
that than we thought. Like And it was really me where I'm like, "Oh, like, something must be wrong." It's like, "No, it's just she's not like, her family's not like my family, like, it's not a," you know, um, they enjoy, like, quiet time, which the term quiet time never existed on Nana's side of the family. Like, have you ever heard of a quiet Christmas with Nana?
Hell no.
And the fa Oh, it's Italians screaming at each other.
Yeah.
Um, so once you understand, like, these differences, like, at the core of it, what do you see? It's like, well, at the core of it, I don't wanna be without her. I enjoy the times we're alone with each other, and, um, and we know how to have fun. And a lot of our challenges, she has as hard of a career, if not harder than I do, especially now with me being over in Watchmen. I'm still in serious procedures, but she was grinding when I was grinding at Medtronic. We didn't meet when we were 17 and had no responsibilities and could just go to the roller coaster park every week. We met in the thick of our careers, and there's challenges with that. It's we just realized our challenges are a lot more normal than we think, and at the core of who we are, like, we both love each other. Um, you know, but I don't know, it's a progression. It was a progression for me. There were a couple moments where that happened. I think Jess said, like, her moment was she was with our family at Quail Run Farm Lane, and all of us, Reagan, Steve, Joe, Emily, all of us were there before the babies were born. And she just had the thought where she's like, I want to be a part of this family. And that was her moment. But like all moments are different though. So if you want advice, there's a song by Bruce Springsteen, if I should fall behind. And it's just about how people progress at different rates. And he says, I'll wait for you, and if I should fall behind, wait for me. And everyone, and that's what I'm learning in a relationship. You have to be patient. She's going to grow faster than me at some points. I'm going to grow faster than her. And you can't just leave someone in the dust. You got to turn around and get them. And, that's a marriage. So I don't know. But again, I'm not even married yet. So listen to me. Don't listen to me.
Well,
but
I think Jessica will enjoy listening to that. And I have a
yeah,
follow up question
yeah.
on relationships during a period like you talked about where you're in the thick of the grind, call it, for your career. How do you find time to have a relationship that's meaningful during those harder periods?
Um, you have to be intentional. One of the advice Dave Ramsey said in one of his speeches, was like a TED talk where he's like, you know, nobody he was talking about investing, and he's like, nobody accidentally makes a lot of money. Like, and then he's like, you want to hear something else? It's like no one accidentally has a good marriage. And it was reassuring to hear because it's more in your control than you think. When I, we both struggled with that. We kind of had to like build ourselves up again. We both got to a point where we were really busy, and then I left Medtronic. I switched jobs and bought a house. That was really stressful, and I got my heart rhythm exam done where I became certified as a device rep. That was stressful. That was 10 months of studying. We didn't do a good job, and a lot of times, you know, we didn't we didn't communicate as well as we should, but we just learned these lessons going through it. So we learned to communicate more. If we're feeling something, say it. Be intentional. You know, ask questions. And like some people are like, we talk an hour a week. We don't always do that, but we do it a lot where we'll answer little questions. Like there's a paired app called Paired, where they ask you a daily question, and Jess and I have to answer it. And it's like, what's a core memory from your childhood that helped develop you? And we both have to answer it, and we learn more. Like, what do you expect of your partner in X, Y, and Z, and stuff like that. So, um,
It's called
it
Paired,
doesn't
you said?
paired, yeah. We don't pay for it. You can pay more if you want, but yeah, it was. something we both got guidance on, just kind of to stay connected. But there's times we fall off the wagon and we get locked in on work and we forget to do these things, and then we're like, we need to get back on the horse, and our goal is to get connected. But yeah, it's you know uh, some advice I got was like, when you decide to get married, it's not settling, it's just you're deciding to grow with someone. And it's there are people who settle, but like, again, you see it as a stagnant, I picked this person and that's who they are and done. But it's, again, like, my objective is to give her a good life and she wants to give me a good life, and we're both open to growth. And so this is someone I'm choosing to grow with. Um, so it's hard, but we're both a lot better at kind of the concept of putting the someone said this, putting the rifle on the mantle. After dad goes out hunting all day for food and he gets the food, when you come through the door, put the rifle on the mantle and be with your family. I think that was another Dave Ramsey quote, but it was, yeah, we're both getting better at that, but we're not perfect. Like, we both have hard days where we bring our work home, and you know, but it's normal. So but you have to be intentional, and you have to talk about what your expectations are, and what your goals are. Like, I I think a couple should do this. This is important to me. Like, we've talked about finances, we've talked about how to raise kids, we've talked about what we believe in, we talked about what our parents do that we love, what our parents do that we don't love, and even my dad said that. He's like, we did the same thing. We took some from Nana and Papa, we took some from Elmer and Mary Margaret, and then we made our family. And that's we're going to do the same. So that's yeah. Anyway, for sure, it takes time, and it's an art, and you have to work at it. It's a skill to balance both. But the better you get, the more effective you are at it, I think.
Hmm. Where do you, I mean, I know that you're a goal oriented person too. Where do you see yourself 10, 15 years from now? What does life look like for Mike at that point?
Um,
And if you haven't thought that far, no worries.
no,
Maybe
yeah, no, I have. 10 years, well, say like 5 or 10 years from now, I hope, from a work standpoint, I'm an associate sales rep or a sales rep. That'd be great. Um, but again, we'll see. This clinical role is doing well, so I just want to get promoted within this, or be a clinical manager, which I think is a good promotion from this. Essentially, would be my boss's job. Um,
hmm.
Married with Jess, probably on kid number 2 or 3, and trying to, or we'd probably, you know, move into a different house or something, but yeah, I mean, that's yeah, I'd still be at Boston, and but I don't know, who knows? I mean, my objective is to be a husband, a father, um and a business manager in my role, or something in leadership. May try to get back to coaching grade school football. Like, I want to do that now that I have more time. So we'll see. We'll see where life takes me.
Will you have a dog by then?
Yes, definitely,
Golden?
without a doubt. Yep, a golden. So the first one's going to be Lulu. That'll be after we get married. And then I'm gonna try to sneak in another one, name him Murphy. But we'll see.
Hmm.
It all depends. One dog versus two dogs. It depends. Um, yeah, we'll see though.
Yeah.
We'll definitely have dogs.
I ask that because I think you'll look back and watch this at that point and maybe laugh or be really proud of yourself for hitting that. Now, you said you were gonna name your dog Murphy. You've told me why, and I think this is a good segue because I wanted to ask you before we kind of did our rapid fire questions at the end to wrap up. What are you interested in outside of work, outside of what we've talked about today? I know that you like. I think Lieutenant Mike Murphy is who you would name. that dog after. I know that you like to read. I know that you're interested in a lot of stuff outside of what we talked about. Can you just tell me what you like to do for fun?
Yeah. So I love reading books on leadership. Any book that can interest me. I haven't read a lot in the last couple of years, so I'm starting to read more now. It, I love golf now. I got hooked about a couple years ago. I haven't hunted in a couple years, but I've always loved rifles and guns and hunting. I love working out. I started I went to a CrossFit gym about 4 or 5 years ago and have been there ever since. I don't do CrossFit as much anymore because I keep hurting myself. Um, and it's just my whole body's tight, you know. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
do a monkey bar swinging, kipping pull up, and then I pull something in my neck. Um,
Hmm.
you know, I love running. I did a lot of 5Ks in my life, but recently, like I think my marathon career has ended. I ran a marathon 2 years ago, and then I trained for another one this year that I had to drop out of, but it was good to go after. So yeah, I mean, but yeah, books on leadership and just anything like to try to be a better person. If
Yeah.
it makes me better, I try to do the best I can.
Mike, if you're recommending a book to someone, what's the book that you give them?
Number one book I would recommend. Okay.
Number one.
Um, Whew, that's a good one. There are so many. If I were going to recommend one,
I'll give you two. Make it easier.
okay. Well, definitely Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. Um, that's a really good one. And honestly, the more I learn about Jocko, you wonder if people are fake or not, or like all about the money. You never know when they get to that fame. He more aligns with, I think he's an authentic guy, and I think he aligns with the male figure that I try to be. But that again, that's just a book about taking ownership over everything you do. So that's a person I strive to be. Um, and you know, the second book, I tell you what, a business book I think that was really helpful that allowed me to understand people's psychology is Never Split the Difference. That was in a failed interview with Stryker when I was at Great American. I applied for the associate role. They said no. And then I applied for the sales rep role, which is a promotion. And they took me on an interview. Like HR messed up somewhere. And I met this guy, Eric, who was a hiring manager. And we start going through the interview. And then he starts frantically looking down at my resume, realizing that I'm not qualified for this at all. And he stops. He's like, "You were highly underqualified for this." And I was like, "Yeah, but I work hard." and, um, and I was not meant to be in that role. But he's like, "I appreciate." I mean, he said nice things. He's like, "Your parents must have raised you right. You're an awesome guy. This is definitely not a role that you're ready to take on." And but what he said to me, he's like, "What I will say is, read this book. Never Split the Difference." And
Chris Voss. Yeah. Okay. I was
Chris
about to
Voss,
ask.
yeah, and
Yeah.
he does a master class now, but he is an FBI hostage negotiator. And what I will say is don't read the book as if you're gonna play mind tricks and trick people into buying your product or trick people into doing what you want. That's not the point. It's just you understand how people's brains work. And then you so for me, I just understood it gave me a better idea and more compassion for like guys like physicians when I talk to them and they freak out about something and you know or you're trying to explain something like how do you convince someone that this is the right thing, how do you open their mind or change their mindset. So Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and then Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss is what I would say.
Hmm. And I cut you off. You were talking about your hobbies.
Yeah.
Still, yeah. Did you want to add anything else to that, or do you want to jump into the rapid fire
No, I mean,
round?
yeah, I mean, you know, I guess the last you talked about Murph, so that was Lieutenant Mike Murphy was the Medal of Honor recipient from the story Lone Survivor, and
Hmm.
then also there was the girl Murph in Interstellar. So I've always wanted a girl dog named Murph. I thought that'd be cool. Um, but yeah, that was the background of that. But anyway, yeah, we could do the rapid fire.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Who was your I guess from like a personal hero standpoint, who were your two or three biggest role models growing up?
Growing up, um, definitely would be I'm gonna put this as one person, my mom and dad. Uh, then I would say as a guy, Elmer Schroer, my grandpa, and great grandpa Iman too. I think they both were people I wanted to model myself off of. Um, I don't know. I think between the four of them, those are people that I wanted to be like. So I guess yeah, I'll give you four. My parents, um, and my grandma and grandpa Schroer. They're very strong. Grandma went through a lot of hard times growing up, and she had nothing. And grandpa was a very tough and stoic man. And but I mean, more so than anything, my parents were really good role models too. So they weren't perfect, but no one is when your parents. So they were awesome though. So I they were always strong in hard moments, and that's what I saw as a kid.
Mhm.
So I always held on to that. So those are my
What
four.
is what is a belief or viewpoint that you've changed your mind about recently?
Gosh, yeah, I think it's good to hold beliefs. Like I don't know, coming from a person who was very hard headed growing up. Uh, I think I was pretty judgmental in high school, and then I became very understanding, and then it was to the point where I think I became too passive, and then I think I'm going back on that a little bit, where it's sometimes it's okay to hold a belief and stand your ground on it, and I think in this day and age, we don't we are too tolerant sometimes, and I know in politics that's used for things, but like there's right and wrong sometimes, and
Mhm.
especially when you mistreat another human being. And, you know, so that's one of the things I always laugh about, but I always hear is like a little intolerance never killed anyone. Like, and sometimes it is good to be understanding. You just don't want the pendulum to swing from like completely judgmental to, oh, I'm accepting of everything. It's got to be, listen, I love you and I love who you are, but I'm just telling you that one thing you did, that's not right. So
Mhm.
the the opinion I would say is sometimes you do have to stand up for what you believe in, and it be understanding, but stand up for what you believe is right.
If you had an entire day free, open calendar, what would you spend your time doing? The
Well,
ideal day.
yeah, I practically have. I've been on PTO. I had to burn PTO, so I've been on PTO for 2 weeks. So I've been coming down here working on the house. You know, open calendar. Yeah, I guess I always read a little bit, meditate, exercise. Um, if I could do something that like a little thing that helps, like I'd love to volunteer more. It's been a couple years since I've really volunteered. Um, would love to see someone, get lunch with someone. I'm trying to be more mindful of that. Uh, naturally, I'm
Mhm.
not one that schedules things with people. I struggle with that, so I need to be more mindful and see people I love. Give someone a call, check in, see how they're doing. Maybe call you, see if you're in the middle of a podcast or not. Uh,
Yep.
I don't know. Call my parents, call my siblings, call Ben Seeger, call some of my friends, you name it, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Then if I've had the day to myself, I'll try to make dinner and actually focus on cooking something. I'm trying to cook more. So yeah, just any little thing that I can grow and I at least get one thing done. Like get if I'm working on the house or if I got to do something, like get one thing done so you feel accomplished. So,
Mhm.
but if I have the day to myself, I think it's good to enjoy it and relax, go for a walk.
Mhm. What is a product or something that you spent your money on recently that was an investment that really was worth it?
Headspace. Yeah,
Headspace.
headspace. That um and I'm open about this. Like I started therapy about 2 years ago and wasn't again, this is the balance of you gotta take care of your mind, but you also have to be tough in life, and the toughness is up to me, but you gotta take care of your mind at the same time, and so, if you have one but not the other, I think you're gonna fail, or you're gonna struggle, and it's gonna be a lot more painful than it is, but, like, I was struggling at work at Medtronic before I met Jess and, had a couple tough cases, and, it manifested in physical stuff, and I finally went to see a therapist, and I landed on a guy that's really awesome, and so we talked about it, but Headspace was an app he suggested, and I know other people who do it too. I buy the subscription. There's meditations in there. I used to do the Calm app a couple years ago, but I think this one's better in my opinion, but Headspace, pretty much every day, you do, 1 minute of box breathing, then there's a little video just talking about life. It could be something with no point to it, or it could be something like, "Hey, the holidays are coming up and this is tough, just a heads up." And then you do a meditation, and all their meditations have something at the beginning where it talks about some concept in life. So, and there's a bunch more in there too. So Headspace, I think, is a really good one. You know, if you're religious, pray. That's always good. Pray with this, but Headspace definitely work on your mind a little bit.
Mhm. If you could share a meal with 3 people, living or dead, who would they be?
Good one. Um, so Dad and I actually talked about this a little bit. Definitely St. Paul. And if you ever hear the story of St. Paul, who was Saul, used to persecute and kill Christians, got knocked off his horse, was blinded, and God said to him, like, "Why are you doing this to my people?" And then he became Paul and never met Jesus Christ, but um, was just a go getter. And Jim Rohn had a speech about him where he talked about people you hire and right? He's like, sometimes you got to find a go-getter and they may not look like you. God looked at Paul, who was killing Christians, and said, "That's my guy. I need him to spread the word." Which is, you're like, how? But him and St. Peter butted heads a little bit where Peter was trying to build the church up and Paul was going out and connecting with people and wouldn't ever give up on people. That's why there's so many letters. So Paul would be one. I think Mike Murphy would be another one I would really want to meet. I think that's a really good model human being. And the third one, you know, um, honestly, I think it would be Jocko Willink. I would want to meet him. But there's so many people I would want to meet. So I think that's a good one. Jocko Willink, Mike Murphy, and St. Paul. I
Mhm.
think those would be fun.
Perfect. Are there any lessons from football, your career, or maybe you mentoring someone else that people often overlook, but you think are essential to success?
Yes, you know, I guess, you know, I think it's a good question. I think there's not anything you can't do. It's just a matter of what you want to do, and be okay with not knowing what to do. But when you work on trying to figure out what it is you're meant to do in your life, the best advice I can give is start broad and then work your way down because it something that you were meant to do in your life, like you're supposed to help people. Okay, there's a million jobs that can help people. Um, but even just saying that is okay. And just because it's, you don't have to, I think sometimes we get focused on in life, like you got to find exactly the job. And it's like, it's not that. It's just, I want to help people. Okay. What does that mean? Well, for me, I can't be in a cubicle. Okay. So that's these jobs. Okay. And then I can't be in a cubicle. I want to help. It needs to be important work to me. So whatever I find is important. Now it's only these jobs. And then you just go from there. Um, because like for me, like what's important that helps people, it could be being a medical device rep. It could be a high school football coach. It could be military. It could be volunteering at Boys and Girls Club and teaching kids. Like it stuff like that. So um start broad, work your way down, and best advice. Someone asked Jocko Willing, "How do you get through training?" And he's like, "Best advice I can give you: don't quit." He's like, right, when people quit, that you're done, and no matter what, don't quit. Like it just you know, you may not be happy all the time, but just don't quit.
Mhm. Is there a memory, maybe a song, a smell that when you have that, it takes you back somewhere that's really special to you? Is there anything like that that exists in your life?
I'm sure, a memory, I mean, I'm sure there is. I probably can't think of one right now, but I know, um, sometimes you circle back and you've been listening to music for the last couple years, and then you hear music from when you were a kid.
Mhm.
Um, I've heard some old songs from the '80s come back, like Bruce Springsteen, that remind me of the patio, being on the back patio and seeing my dad jam out to that. So But, I mean, definitely, smells, I would say whenever I go over Nana's, I think about, like, Christmas at Nana's on Wyandotte. I think about that, um, so stuff like that, but that happens all the time.
Mhm. There's, 2 more that I wanna hit on, then we'll wrap up here.
Okay.
Actually, 1 more. We'll wrap up with the question that I like to end every interview with, and that's, if there was a single piece of wisdom or advice that's had the greatest impact on you, what exactly is it that you want the listener of this episode today to walk away with?
Um, I would say, like, more so be willing to adapt and grow in life, be dynamic, and know that it does get hard, and I don't say that to be negative, I just say that so you're mentally prepared. I think you and I talked about it a little bit where, um, the moment you think you've done the hardest thing possible, you probably haven't. Um, so Jim Rohn, who was a guy I listened to when I was at Great American doing my master's and trying to reframe my life philosophy, he's like, "Don't wish it was easier, wish you were better." And you can take that and only focus on your career, and that's fine, but, um, you're gonna go through a lot of hard things in your personal life too, and, like, I'm a guy, I've lost 2 uncles, I've lost most of my grandparents, and those are normal things that happen, but my parents are still here, but I know they're getting older, that that's gonna happen, and same with my in-laws, stuff like that, so, um, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better, and I would try to get better, but also prepare yourself to be stronger in those moments. And so for me, having those disciplines matter. And the one thing I struggle with is being as disciplined as I need to do what I want in my life. Like I am disciplined, but I could be more disciplined. Um, so just life won't change. It's going to be hard or it's going to be good. It's going to be easy or whatever it's going to be. You just got to be better and prepared for it.
Mhm. Mike, thank you for your time today. I really do appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you, Stevie, and good job with the podcast, man. Keep it up. I'm proud of you.